It is all too easy to reduce someone to a headline, a soundbite, or a single mistake, but God doesn't do that with us. How can we extend the same grace to others? What's up, my EFF? Let me tell you how it is. You've stumbled upon Jots, a series about the nature of love, compassion, joy, and the real-life connection between human beings. I'm Ender Bowen, Nashville, Tennessee rock pop artist, author, husband, father, complete dork, and aspiring compassionist. Sit back, relax, and be prepared to laugh, cry, maybe even avoid a swirly or two. Really? When I was a kid, my grandmother had this ritual that seemed simple enough, but looking back, it was pretty profound in its own right. She kept a scrapbook. It wasn't just any scrapbook, it was a chronicle of my life. The Chronicles of the greatest grandson in the world, parentheses, even though I have a few grandsons, this is definitely my favorite, for sure, guaranteed, end parentheses. She was great with words, and honest. Every time my name popped up in the local paper for a school award, a performance, or even a small mention in the sports section for a team I was playing on, very small mention, how much can you report on the bench, she would clip it out and carefully place it in her book. These weren't just random clippings to her, they were pieces of me, snapshots of who I was becoming. I never thought about it much back then. I figured it was just something grandmas did. But as I got older, I realized the depth of what she was doing. She was collecting moments that, in her eyes, mattered. They mattered not because they were major achievements by worldly standards, or any standards, to be fair, but because they were glimpses of who I was. Each one was a testament to my growth, to my personhood. Whether I was succeeding or failing, she saw it all as a part of a bigger picture. And this got me to thinking, what if God's like that? What if he's got his own divine scrapbook filled with our life clippings? Not just the shiny, polished moments, but the messy, awkward ones too. And what if God holds on to those memories, not because they define us by themselves, but because they're pieces of the whole, pieces he treasures just like my grandmother treasured mine. Whoa, hey, before we get too deep into this episode here, if you like this shirt that I'm wearing, you can find this one and others like it at godjotstore.com. Head on over there now. I'll wait. Now imagine this for a second. What if God really does keep a scrapbook? What if he's been collecting newspaper clippings of our lives, capturing everything, not just the big moments, but the small, seemingly insignificant ones too? Not just the good things, but the bad ones, the mistakes, the regrets, the failures. It's one thing to think about God remembering our accomplishments, but what if he's also holding on to the moments where we messed up, lost our way, or hurt others? Yeesh. It might sound terrifying at first, and at second, and at third. This idea that God could have an entire scrapbook filled with our failures. We'd naturally shy away from the idea that anyone, let alone the creator of the universe, would want to memorialize the times we've fallen short. But here's the thing. What if God keeps those clippings, not out of judgment, but out of love? Think about it. If God is truly loving, then his scrapbook wouldn't just be a collection of our successes, would it? It would be a story of us, with all the beauty and brokenness woven together. If he holds on to the moments where we were at our worst, it's not because he's waiting to throw them back in our faces. It's because he sees the whole picture. Those moments, good and bad, form a larger narrative, a narrative of redemption, growth, and grace. In fact, isn't this the very picture of how God loves us? He loves us not only when we shine, but also when we falter. He loves us as a whole, just as my grandmother kept all the clippings, good, bad, and everything in between, because each one told a part of the story. She saw me through the lens of love, not through the lens of judgment. If God has your newspaper clippings, it's because he loves you, wholly and fully. He doesn't discard you because of a few bad headlines. Instead, he treasures every piece of your story. And if that's how God sees us, what does this mean for how we should see others? All right, now, turn the tables. Imagine if you had a scrapbook of someone else's life. A real, raw, unfiltered account of who they are, their victories, their failures, their mistakes, their moments of triumph. What would you do with that collection? Would you focus on the bad and slowly distance yourself away from them, thinking, one swirly is plenty, thank you? Or would you see the good moments and think, well, the toilet was already flushed, so... Or better yet, could you look at the whole picture and begin to understand that the bad doesn't cancel out the good, and the good doesn't erase the bad? They coexist. They are both necessary parts of what makes a person who they are. It's so easy for us to lean toward extremes, either writing someone off because of their mistakes or idolizing them for their achievements. But what if we could see people the way God sees them? What if we could look at each person's scrapbook and see a whole, complex, fascinating story instead of just fragments? When God looks at someone's clippings, He doesn't love them less because of their missteps, nor does He love them more because of their successes. He loves them entirely for who they are. The good, the bad, the ugly, it's all part of the story. And if we could see people like that, even for a moment, wouldn't we start to love them more wholly too? And then the harder question comes. What if they had your clippings? Don't steal from my grandma. What if someone else could see all the moments of your life, good and bad? No, thank you. How would you want them to see you? Would you want them to write you off because of your mistakes? Or would you hope they'd see the full picture, the complexity of who you are, and love you anyway? I am so excited to tell you about my first God Jots book, Forgiveness and Healing, How to Seek, Offer, and Understand the Power of Forgiveness. It has all kinds of lessons on how to ask for forgiveness, how to offer forgiveness, and real stories from real people who've experienced it. Not only that, it talks about why it's important. It helps you understand and how to empower yourself to forgive. I'm telling you, if you're tired of living in a divisive world and you want to start using compassion, you've got to start with forgiveness. Start with God Jots, Forgiveness and Healing, How to Seek, Offer, and Understand the Power of Forgiveness. Coming July 15th, and you can pre-order it at forgivenessbook.godjots.com. This idea of God having your newspaper clippings is both comforting and convicting. It's comforting because it reminds us that God isn't looking at us through a lens of judgment or condemnation. He sees our whole story and loves us fully. But it's convicting because it challenges us to do the same for others, to look beyond the surface, beyond the headlines, and see the person underneath. We live in a world that's quick to define people by their worst moments. Social media, the news, gossip. It's all too easy to reduce someone to a headline, to a soundbite, to a single mistake. But God doesn't do that with us. He doesn't reduce us to our worst moments, nor does He inflate us based on our best ones. He holds the whole story, and He loves us for it. So the challenge is this. Can we start to see others the way God sees them? Can we stop reducing people to their worst moments and instead embrace the fullness of who they are? Can we hold on to those newspaper clippings, good and bad, and see them through a lens of grace? Well, honestly, it's not easy. It's messy. People are complicated, and sometimes, lots of times, loving them feels impossible. But when we remember that God has a scrapbook full of our moments and He's still holding on to it with love, we're reminded that this is how we're called to love others. God has your newspaper clippings, no matter who you are, no matter what you've done. And because of that, we're called to see the clippings of others with the same kind of grace, the same kind of love, warts and all. All right. Now it's your turn. What do you think about this idea of God having your newspaper clippings? How does it make you feel? How would you feel if other people had them? What would you do if you had someone else's? Does this idea change how you might think about others? Does it have an effect on how you think God might feel about you? I would love for you to share your thoughts about this episode with my growing community of aspiring compationists. Find out how to join us on Discord by going to enderbowen.com/Discord. If you like this episode and want to be notified when new ones are uploaded, make sure you don't leave without hitting that subscribe button. Or subscribe to God Jots on your favorite podcast streaming service. You can also check out more God Jots, as well as subscribe to the mail list for ebooks, updates, and exclusive content at godjots.com. Until next time, be honest with yourself. Be truthful with others. Give people the opportunity to surprise you. And remember that it's impossible to have absolutely nothing in common with another human being. Be a little light in the world. I'm sure I'll see you soon.